Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 441. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey there, Noah. Guess what? On a very spooky edition of the show this week, I'm going to slay a zombie Arch server with an OpenMediaVault axe. I'll tell you about the emergency server swap out I had to do and how OpenMediaVault had to replace and why it had to replace a homegrown...
A failing Arch box.
Yes, Noah. Yes, you don't have to rub it in, Noah. I'm already giving myself a hard time about it. But we'll tell you more about that later. Then in the news, we're going to talk about the Dirty Cow update and also some potentially positive developments, I guess, with the whole Kodi Pirate box story, as well as some massive updates coming to Firefox in 2017 and more. Then we got some great feedback. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we got right here at the top of the show?
We got the pics.
You got it. I don't even know how you knew that. You're so,
me either, because I didn't have the doc up. I had pictures up instead.
You're so good at that. It's like you've done it a couple of times or something. I don't know. I've been having lately visions about upgrading Jupiter Broadcasting's video resolution. In fact, it was even a topic in the subreddit this weekend. Dreams of 4K or 1080p 60 frames per second. No particular reason other than just trying to meet that high quality bar. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
No, it's crazy because then it adds a whole new level of complexity.
Yeah, that's great.
And stress to remote broadcasting.
Yeah, especially after the troubles I had this morning before we got on the air. That's why when Noah found this 21,000 frames per second Kronos high-speed camera that runs Linux, this had to be the pick of the week. This is our Runs Linux.
And have the trigger right on your lap and press the trigger. Now the camera is essentially a Linux-based computer, and the boot up time is approximately 30 seconds.
I like this music.
And I'll show you this in real time, just
Super
so
intense.
You know just how long it actually
probably
boots
get us
up.
pulled
and
down.
Eventually, it'll probably have a fancy splash screen there. That.
So this is a prototype, by the way. So that dude's face is not going to be the shipping product. No,
Could be. It could be.
It's not bad. It's very personal.
Firmware can be updated through the menu system. Okay, the boot up is complete once you see that screen, and it's ready to go.
And it's a full touch interface powered by Linux, of course, and it records to a Linux box and all of that. That's pretty nice. And if you if I back it up a little bit and you get another visual of it, it's totally a huge lens attached to a tiny computer with Ethernet on the side. What else? It has a HDMI out. Take a look at this thing. Display
Looks
port
like
out.
HDMI, SMPTE on the bottom, SDI above the Ethernet.
Yeah, is that okay?
Audio?
Yep.
Is that audio?
It might be audio in and out right there. Yeah. And then some other connector that I'm not familiar with what that is at the very bottom.
The bottom's not SMPTE. That's power, I bet.
Oh, that could be. Or I was thinking maybe the far left one is power, but yeah. Either way, Ethernet on my camera. Yes, please. Yes, please. That sounds amazing. And that's what you get when Linux powers a camera. You know, I did have a double runs Linux. Surprise flash double runs Linux last minute submission by I think there was a pizza catastrophe in the kitchen right at the beginning of the show. I think there was some sort of pizza catastrophe. Did you hear that? It was crazy.
I didn't, but thank you for drawing attention and totally.
Do you want me to go check on it? I could go check on it, or do you think we should? Yeah. Should we keep doing that? Okay.
I think maybe we should go ahead and do the show. We could check on it afterwards.
It could be. There could be deliciousness all over the floor anyway.
I'm okay.
There might be.
Oh, okay. She's good. She's okay. Okay. Thanks, honey. All right. So @Bitten tweeted this right as we were setting up for the show. This is an unbelievable story. What the F, he says. I found a working Dell laptop with Ubuntu already installed on it in the trash from the room I'm in. How about that? He says, it's from 2012. People here, huh? And he didn't bother trying to pull porn off it. He's already installing Ubuntu Mate on it. I thought.
But he said he found it with Linux though, right?
Yeah, with Ubuntu preloaded on it in the trash can. That's somebody's like, I am done with this piece of junk, and they're throwing it in the trash can. That's it. I can't handle it anymore.
In Microsoft Office.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever? I've never thrown a computer out.
This week I walked out. I literally got so mad at a particular situation.
Really?
I walked out and dumped it up on somebody else. Yeah, it was terrible.
Good for you. I don't often get to do that, but I tell you this.
No, I did. There's other people making fun of me because I only tried for about a minute and a half, and then I was like, screw it, I'm leaving. Not doing this.
This morning I sat down at this Linux box right here in front of me, and I start to play some audio, and I don't have any sound. I'm like, well, where's my sound? Because nothing's changed since Thursday, right?
Nobody's just bought a new sound interface,
and nobody's used this computer since me. So I'm like, what's going on? So, and I look and, oh yeah, my sound interfaces have changed back to the wrong default settings. I'm like, well, I should go change that. So I go change it back to my right to the correct USB sound out, and I hit play again. And I'm looking at my levels, and I got my headphones on. I don't hear anything. Like, what is going on? So I got the audio fixed here, right? I'm looking at this. I'm like opening up other applications, seeing if they can make sound. I got Puva Control up. I'm looking at everything, and everything shows like it's working just right. And then I look over at the mixer, and I realize that my mixer is locked up. I had two separate issues where my mixer had locked up and the audio had switched to the default sound out. And so I'm like double audio screwed over this morning. I'm like, you know what? I don't know what's going on here. I just want to go take like a little portable microphone and do the show because this is ridiculous. But otherwise,
set up my webcam.
And then
put on my USB Logitech headset.
And then the Linux box that you're on right here, the one that captures your video, your mug,
was working flawlessly.
Audio worked fine, but it stopped seeing the video interface, the capture device. Don't know why. So it has been a morning of technical issues.
This is one of those times when you turn to the computer and you're like, you had one job! You know, like, I mean, seriously, like, it has one thing to do.
Oh, jeez. I know. It's like, come on. And you know, Noah, the only systems I seem to have these days that are working without issue are my droplets over at DigitalOcean.com. And if you use the promo code, here's the thing, you'll get a $10 credit. Guess what? $10 is $10. Now, this is why I say $10 is $10, because you probably knew that, but you didn't know that DigitalOcean's $5 a month, or you can pay hourly. You can get a really nice rig for 3 cents an hour. DigitalOcean has these droplets. And you're like, what? Chris, what the F is a dang droplet? Oh, I'll tell you what a droplet is. They got these droplets, you guys. You can deploy an SSD cloud server in seconds, in less than 55 seconds via their intuitive control panel or their flexible API. That's what a droplet is. And then you can attach block storage as you need it. They got data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany. Hey, Noah, India. Are you always deploying?
No.
Where do you always deploy your droplets? India? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I usually use Seattle. Not Seattle.
California.
West Coast, California. Yeah,
man, Seattle be so cool.
So I've done the East Coast, New York, and I've done California, and both of those. Having compared both of those, the West side always seems to work better. That's number one. Number two is a lot of times the ones that I actually it wouldn't really matter which data center because they all work pretty well, except for when we're doing production stuff. Then they have to be in the West Coast. So I just kind of put everything in the West Coast.
That makes sense.
When everything goes down, I know because all the servers crash at one time.
It's funny. I have 2 servers of my own personal servers that I run on the East Coast just to have it physically separated from me. And so I have servers over there, so that way if Seattle fell into the ocean someday, or California, I have all that in a whole nother location. And what's really nice about that is they have really good networking. Like in the East Coast data center, I have private networking set up, which is such a sweet feature because you can have your 2 different droplets talking to each other on their own private network, not taking any of your transfer. It's a great way to do backups or do like a system that forwards to a backend box. 40 gigabit connections coming into the 40 gigabit connections coming into the hypervisor, which means you're going to have super great speed, and you can deploy entire application stacks, either from the entire, like from WordPress all the way down to an Ubuntu LTS, or just the bare system, and you build it yourself. And with team support, you can have a couple of people or an entire group of people working with you. And if you ever get into the point of needing to sort of poke at their API, I think you'll be really impressed with how well they've documented it, how clear it is, and how many great things are already written. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code, here's the thing, and take advantage of their all SSD-backed droplets. They run super fast on great servers running KVM on top of Linux boxes with a brilliant way to support the show built in by using that promo code. Gets you $10 and supports the Linux Action Show. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code, here's the thing, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. I see you hacking and coughing over there with the mute switch. You're doing a good job.
Yeah,
You're doing really.
I thought so. I thought so. Nobody will know that I'm sick.
Nobody will ever know.
You know how much I love Telegram, right?
I'm so glad you brought this up because this is exactly what I was going to call you out for. I was going to call you out for this.
I am a Telegram fanboy. In fact, I don't even respond to people if they don't send me. If they can't be bothered to send me a message on Telegram, then screw you and your caveman not communication type. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me. You might as well use a Morse code. And then this week, I get Ham Radio, I think, was the first one to send it to me. Sent me a link, and he goes, "Check out this communication software." What? Not Telegram. Don't care. Somebody else sends it to me. "Hey, check out this open source communication software. It's encrypted. Not Telegram. Don't care." And then like 4 other people sent it to me, and then we see it in the feedback. And about, I don't know when it was. I think Wednesday or Thursday. I just messaged Chris, and I'm like, "I got the app pick this week. I got the app pick this week."
Yeah.
Wire.com is an open source encrypted chat, video, voice communication system that's open source on both ends, the server and the client. If you remember, Telegram, the client is open source, but the back end is not only encrypted, or is not only closed source, but the encryption is secret. They don't tell you what encryption method and how all of that's working. So you're trusting them that they have done a good job making it secure.
Telegram is plotted by Russians.
Right. Who are trying to influence the American
Russians
election.
who want to influence the election. Yeah, that's all the Russian. That's as close as I get. Yeah, there's no way you're switching, though. I mean, you can sit there and slam Telegram all you want, but you're not switching to Wire.
I don't know. I would switch overnight if one thing weren't true, and that is that I've just spent the last 2 years converting everyone from SMS and Google Hangouts and Yahoo Messenger and AIM and MSN and everything under God's green earth over to Telegram. If I go back to those people and I'm like, "Okay, guys, new system," it's just never going to work. But if this starts to pick up more adoption and more people are on it, they have apps for Android, they have apps for iOS, they have a desktop app, they have a Mac app, a Windows app, and that's the other thing I'll be watching is, do they consistently upgrade their desktop app? Because Telegram, the Linux desktop app, is a first-class app just like all of the other operating systems.
Yeah.
Windows and Mac get updates, Linux gets an update. If that holds true with this, and it's not some stupid, web wrapper thing, it's actually a native application like Telegram is, I don't know, it could have some potential. I definitely have my eye on it.
I tell you, one big difference between this and Telegram that I like a lot is no phone number required to set up an account, which means I can have it on multiple devices, which would be really nice.
What an outdated concept.
Yeah, it's how they. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I also obviously like that it's open source. The code's up on GitHub and it's full end-to-end encryption. They say that all seems like things that push my buttons. The desktop app looks a lot like Slack or Mattermost or Rocket Chat. It's inline images,
which I don't like. I mean, I like the inline images, but if you ever see a screen cap on my desktop, my Telegram window is shrunk down to like it's tall and skinny, the same way like MSN Messenger used to be. And so when the chat takes up the whole thing.
Tall and skinny. It's exactly how I do it too. And I barely have the contacts list showing. I don't have it showing at all. How do you know when you have new messages? You just have
it's sitting on the contact list. When I get a message, I go into the message, I respond, then I hit escape, and it goes back to the contact.
I might switch to that mode. So this is very nice. Just like Signal is also a very good application. But there is, just like Skype, there is such a huge advantage to so many people having Telegram. And, I went through the process of getting everybody at JB and the whole team to use Viber. And I thought for sure nobody would switch to Telegram when I wanted everyone. I remember when Telegram came along, I'm like, oh, this is so much better. Let's switch to Telegram. And because Telegram was genuinely a better product and had cool features, I think it sold itself.
The desktop app on Telegram is what sold me over Viber.
Maybe our conversation this morning I would like to have over an application like this. That was the only time where I was like, boy, if anybody was actually reading this Telegram thread right now, they'd think we're a bunch of anarchists. You know what I mean? So I was thinking, well, I kind of wish this wasn't on Telegram at the moment. But that's the only time I've really, otherwise, like, I don't put anything in Telegram. It's like, I don't know. Of course, I'm kind of an exhibitionist to a degree.
I mean, again, I go by a hard, fast rule. If it's actually private to me, it doesn't go anything on the internet, encrypted or otherwise, secure or unsecure. I wouldn't do it. But it's a nice feature to have. And the thing is, if this does everything that Telegram does, except we have more options available to us, I'll tell you what, I would have really liked to have been able to just use the same. When we were, imagine the other night.
Yeah, man.
It was like, I was like 11 at night for me, or 11:30 at night. And Chris and I were talking about something, and he's like, this would just be easier to bang out over a video call. Can I just call you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so then we kind of figured that out. Wouldn't it have been nice just to click on an icon? Now we're connected. Here we go.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, not have to switch to a different app with a different account required. Okay, but so this is the Spotlight. This to me is really exciting. I love the Spotlight. This is cool.
Okay, now before you do, when you first saw the name of the Spotlight, did you giggle?
Yeah.
Did you giggle?
Of course, I'm a child inside. Yeah.
All right, chat room. We're going to talk about Easy Stroke.
Yeah, that's, again, just to make sure, yes, you did hear that correctly. It's
just stroke it a little bit.
It's Easy Stroke.
It's easy. It's an easy way to stroke. And so what Easy Stroke is a mouse gesturing application that you memorize a mouse gesture on your computer, and then that gesture can do things. It can open a specific application, or it can execute a specific key combination, or just a specific key. And you know how I found this app? This is actually kind of funny. For years, everyone has given the Ubuntu Software Store a bad rap. It's just hard to discover software. It's hard to discover software. It's hard to discover software. The last couple times that I have been like, I'm going to need to find an app pick this week, and I don't quite know where to look, I go into the App Store and I just start screwing around with a couple different apps and the ones that come up as suggested and stuff, and I've just installed them. And every once in a while, I find something like this that's like, I'm keeping this.
That's like the only reason I really like app stores is sometimes they do help me find stuff I never knew about. That's like it. That's the thing they do for me. Like,
what I'm using this for is I have a mouse gesture that unminimizes a specific application. So I can bring up Telegram, for example. In my case, it's my ticketing software, and I do a mouse gesture, and now my ticketing software is up, and I can enter or modify the ticket or whatever, and then go back to whatever I was doing. That's the one application I'm jumping in and out of the most.
Are you holding down a modifier key? So like, are you using like the super key in combination with the gesture, or are you just straight up gesture? What are you doing?
Straight up gesture, but you can memorize whatever you want. When you click the record, my understanding is, and I haven't tried like a bunch of different things. My understanding is you can record whatever gesture you want or whatever key combination plus gesture you want, and then it will remember that.
They have some examples on their GitHub about like using it to switch tabs in Firefox and other things like that, and sending different commands to your browser. Executing shells. This is super cool, dude. I think this is a great idea. And like, screw getting rid of the mouse, embrace the mouse. And ironically, it sounds like the developer started this project to make tablet life better, and now it's morphed into this.
I'm of one of two minds. Either let me use the keyboard for everything, or let me use the mouse for everything. The worst thing is something like Google Docs, where if I'm using the mouse, I can't copy and paste. But if I'm using the keyboard, it's difficult to scroll back and forth and get from one place to the other, or select text or something. There's no concept of let's pick one or the other and then stick with it. And so, yeah, I think it's great if I can get to the point where my hand's always on the mouse anyway. We just start using that to switch back and forth.
I could see that being really useful, like on the mixer machine, but also just on my main presenter machine. Cool.
Yeah,
that is really cool. I want to talk about, just before we go, I wanted to give a shout out to an old project that's gotten a little bit of life recently. Speaking of spooky zombies, our openyourmouth.recipes website is actually still a thing. And I think maybe with the holidays coming up and all that kind of BS, we'll start talking about it more. It's just a free, fun place where not everybody. 53 people have gone to contribute 217 different types of recipes or updates. They're all formatted in Markdown and submitted to GitHub, and anybody can contribute. Some of them go back for a couple of years now. There's vegan recipes, slow cooking, barbecue, pizza, pasta, hot dishes, on the grill, different types of eggs, what to do with butter, breakfast. This is just straight up open source recipes from the Jupiter Broadcasting community. Openyourmouth.recipes if you want to contribute yours, or if you want to just look at some of the ones the community's done. I was thinking we might feature some of these in upcoming User Error, or try some of them out and report back or something. We'll have fun with them in a future User Error episode. So I wanted to give a shout out to openyourmouth.recipes, mostly because I just renewed the domain yesterday, and I thought, well, people are actually still contributing, so let's give it a shout out. And I don't know if we've ever really mentioned it on the Linux Action Show. So it's kind of a neat resource. And I think one of the reasons we launched it was, hey, do you want to practice your GitHub skills? And hey, do you want to practice your Markdown? And then some people say, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. And other people are like, no, I want recipes. So it's been kind of fun. Openyourmouth.recipes. Okay, Noah, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Why don't you go to last.ting.com to support the show and get yourself $25 off your first Ting device, or $25 in service credit. Ting is mobile that makes sense. They're really on a mission to try to change the mobile industry, and they're doing it by letting you vote with your wallet for no contracts, no other termination fees, and you only pay for what you use. Minutes, messages, and megabytes, and $6 for the line. You want 5 phones? It's really straightforward. It's not like $30 a phone. It's $6 a phone. And when you need customer service, you get a talk to a real human being. And I'm telling you, these people are good at their jobs because Ting hires the geeks. Now Ting also has GSM and CDMA services, so you can pick what's best in your area. And there's even more phones that you can bring, so check those out. Especially like the ones I love to buy just from the Play Store. And they have a great dashboard to manage all of this with great apps to back up that customer service. $6 frickin' bucks a month. It's no doubt that I've been a Ting customer now for, jeez. I mean, in January, I don't know, is it 3 years, Noah? Is that what it is in 3 years?
It was 13. So
it was 2013? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, actually, no, 2000. Yeah, 2013. Well, it was before that though, because I was 2013. April 2013 was the Linux Fest Northwest where Ting saved the day, and it was before that, so probably closer to 4 years.
Amazing. Yeah, that's right. That's a good story, actually. Well, we should tell that story in the future. But just go over to the Ting site and sign up with our last promo code. You get a good credit and you support the show. And if you're not sure yet, you can still support the show by visiting Ting, clicking on their savings calculator, just give it a litmus test, and maybe check out their blog while you're there too. I think this is kind of neat. I would love to have one of these in my place. They put up a DIY tip. It's like a minute-long video on how to install a AC power outlet in your home with USB ports in it to charge your devices. So no more power bricks. I hate power bricks too. And at my place, sometimes the power bricks squeal a little bit, which is awful. This would be so much nicer just to have it right in the wall. And it's a 1-minute video, and you can find that on the Ting blog. They got a bunch of other great stuff too. You can bring a device or buy a device outright from Ting, unlocked and ready to go, or bring it from the Play Store and have the ultimate monthly update service where your carrier never gets in the way. Start by going to last.ting.com. And a big thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. So I want to cover a couple follow-up stories from last week that are pretty important, both Dirty Cow and Kodi stuff, which is from a couple of weeks ago. But let's start with the Dirty Cow stuff. This is just a quick one. Dustin Kirkland tweeted and out a blog post that I caught that's a pretty neat follow-up to the live patch service we interviewed him about last week. Remember we talked about Dirty Cow, the vulnerability in the Linux kernel. It turns out that this is just neat and just sort of a nice coincidence that the vulnerability was published just like right around when the live patch service went live. Mm-hmm. So they had a really good real-world deployment of one of their first major patches, and users on Ubuntu 16.04 who signed up for the live patch service within hours of Canonical having a fix had the fix in their running kernel. It's pretty neat. That's like an immediate turnaround for Ubuntu 16.04 systems to be. I mean, people could have, you could have been on top of it, updated your package manager cache, downloaded your new packages, installed them, and rebooted your system. Absolutely, anybody could have done that, and you could have done it on any version of Linux or any distro. But this is particularly cool that we just, in the context of one of the most hotly discussed Linux vulnerabilities, and one of the neater services we've seen from Canonical, I have no idea if Red Hat or SUSE's live patch service has fixed Dirty Cow. It would seem reasonable to me. It would seem like a likely thing that has happened. But we have, as a community, we have no visibility and we have no access to this technology, either financially or just through the source code. Like it's not something I can set up and do. Where lots of people run LTS Ubuntu, and lots of people can have a free account, and lots of people can have their systems patched. And because it's at that level of access to the community, we get more insights about what's happening with it. So it seems like a more useful tool even from that perspective too. So I really think they have a win here with this. Not only do we have some real world results where they just live patch Dirty Cow, but we get this great perspective on how this service works, which makes it easier down the road if I figure out if I want to put my devices on it or not. I think it's a real nice win here that Canonical has.
Well, and the other thing is it's kind of a nice foray into this, right? Like they announce the service and all of a sudden immediately have a large range of users that are instantly in need of the service. Yeah. And so, like you said, you get a chance to knock on it and see how it works. And then later you can trust it for more critical things.
Yep, exactly. So, it's, not always going to work. It's not always going to be the silver bullet that's going to slay your daemon, but it sometimes will be a very useful tool for systems you don't want to take offline. So let's do a little more follow-up. We had, 3-4 weeks ago discussed the Kodi pirate boxes. You remember that, Noah?
Let me think here.
No, it doesn't ring a bell?
Yes. Okay. Because it's free. That's why. Yes, I recall that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, new legislation that was designed to tackle pirate Kodi boxes, and the sellers specifically, has been rejected. What? What? This seems like it could be a really, really good thing, right? Because we don't want to see the government cracking down on Kodi boxes. Copyright holders everywhere are worried about these Kodi boxes, according to the UK. Remember, this is a thing that they've been discussing, and they're they have a trading standards office that's worried about this. They have like several offices. They also have a new digital.
On this.
They have a new digital economy bill that they've been formulating for a while, and they want to tweak all this in there. And they're specifically concerned about Android IP TV boxes. And they wanted to update some legislation, and it turns out that it got declined simply because the government believes that they already have all the authority that they need in this case. And they explained that by the very fact that they've already arrested somebody and are prosecuting them right now for selling Pirate Kodi boxes.
I agree.
And what's funny is in this process, people in Parliament are even recommending that people get Kodi box. Like, it's a thing even in Parliament they're talking about. This all in this article. But they say essentially the Fraud Act of 2006 and Serious Crime Act of 2015, those two things come together, give them the strong legal framework in which they have the authority to go after Pirate Kodi sellers. The strong legal framework.
That honestly, that's a very rational, reasonable, articulate argument, is that pirating is already illegal. We don't need to pass a new law to make pirating illegal because of the specific way they do it. I agree. There is no new legislation. And the problem with, and this is a win if you ask me, because the problem with any new legislation is you start to focus in on and tighten down a specific box or a specific project, and then that project gets a black mark on it. So now it's just, if you're using Kodi to pirate media, that's illegal. Just like if you're using transmission.
And they're specifically going after sellers right now. I agree, it's a win. It just freaks me out that they already have the authority to go after people for selling things. It's weird to me.
I mean, I can't. It's difficult for me to get too upset if somebody is selling a box online that is with the express intent to pirate something.
Yeah, I agree. You know what, though? Big picture, seriously, I got a couple of comments. I saw some comments on this news story. In the subreddit, there's a couple of people that said, I didn't even really ever consider using Kodi, or I hadn't heard about Kodi, a couple of different versions of it, until these stories, and now I've got one installed.
No PR is bad PR.
Yeah, and it could be true.
Yeah.
So this is, I know
Watch the show. We do a review for crying out loud.
I know, I've covered it a few times. This is a story I'm personally very excited about, but I'm not so sure you're going to get fired up about this one. And it's dtrace for Linux. Kinda. This is a big systems tool that is that first birthed on Solaris and then became available on FreeBSD. And it's one of the straws in that FreeBSD cap. And we've got something just like it now coming to Linux in kernel 4.9. It is drawing on existing tracing features that have been iterated on over the years. And what happened is there was an engineer who previously worked at I can't remember if it was Berkeley or Sun. He worked somewhere where he was using dtrace all the time to do troubleshooting of performance and get high scaling network applications. And he ended up switching jobs and moving to Netflix as an engineer. And Netflix uses a ton of Linux, despite what you might hear about their distribution box on the back end. They use a ton of Linux. And so he found himself all of a sudden immersed in a Linux server world without the dtrace tool. So in 2014, when he joined the Netflix cloud performance team, having spent years as a dtrace expert, he thought it was crazy to switch to Linux at first, but he had some motivations, of course, seeking a better challenge and performance tuning the Netflix cloud, which is a microservices architecture and lots of distributed systems, and sometimes the job involves system tracing. In the past, we'd use dtrace. Without dtrace on Linux, he began using what was built into Linux kernel, ftrace and perf events, and from there made a toolkit of different tracing tools called perf tools, which you may have heard of before. They've been invaluable, but he couldn't do some tasks, particularly latency histograms and stack trace counting.
Yeah, how did he get by without those?
I know, and he needed it all to be programmatic. Long story short, him and a bunch of other groups over the last 2 years, or a bunch of other gentlemen over the last 2 years, began poking at this thing, using like time paid by Netflix, which I guess he even tracked and documented with the company. Then when they got it to a serious place called BPF tracking or something like tracing. And then once they got it to the serious place, Netflix allowed them to start spending more time on it. And they've got this thing to a really, really flushed out, super competitive compared to dtrace level I don't know if it's completely there yet, but it is very close, and it'll be shipping in kernel 4.9. Now, think of the advantage to be able to trace anything that happens in the system with very, very, very minimal overhead. Typically, when you monitor the system, you alter and skew the results because the act of monitoring puts some load on that. You've noticed this even with simple things like top or GNOME System Monitor. The act of monitoring the system actually puts some load on the system, right? Yeah. This fixes that. It's not perfect, but it reduces that load. So when you can run performance traces on disk I/O and network I/O, and from the beginning of a process to everything it does and everything it touches on that system, with very, very minimal impact on the system performance. And then you can generate great data from that. But on top of all of that, they've made it programmatic. So you can program to it and have exact repeatable tests happen, which if you're thinking about, you're trying to build the Netflix cloud and stream so much content to all these people all over the world, this kind of tuning is super critical. So I think this is huge for Linux because it was a massive advantage to FreeBSD. And one of the reasons Netflix was deploying lots of FreeBSD more and more so. And now to have this in kernel 4.9, thanks to the hard work of these guys, is pretty exciting. Now, I'll have to leave it to the actual people out there that are using this stuff to tell me how competitive it is, but it looks really, really good. And if you are at all curious in this stuff, I have another link in the show notes.
I just want to say that I really have positive things to say about developers who have the tools that they like.
That's good input there. No, that's good.
Yep. I'm sorry. Like you called it. Like there's some things that I'm super excited about, and then there's other like really deep in-depth. I'm sure to the people that use this stuff, I'm sure it's very, very cool and very, very important. I'm sure there's probably a large section of the audience much smarter than me that's like, that's the coolest thing ever, and I'm glad it's out there. So I'm glad we can cover it.
How about this one? You're a total monster who loves Firefox, true? You are just a maniac that doesn't switch to Chrome.
I'm a normal, rational human being that likes companies that do good things rather than companies that infringe on your privacy and sell your data. Yep, that would be an accurate description.
Well, then you might be excited about a quantum leap for the web coming from Mozilla. Over the past year, our top priority at Firefox has been electrolysis, which is the process to deliver multi-process browsing to their end users. Firefox has been working on this for a long time. It's the largest change they've ever made to the Firefox code base, and they're going to roll. That's their words, not mine. They're going to roll out electrolysis to 100% of Firefox desktop users over the next few months. So it's coming big. And so they're shifting from electrolysis to Project Quantum. Quantum is their effort to develop Mozilla's next generation web engine and start delivering major improvements to the users by the end of 2017. Quantum is all about making extensive use of parallelism and fully exploiting modern hardware. Quantum has a number of components, including several adopted from the Servo project. The resulting engine will power fast and smooth user experiences on both mobile and desktop operating systems, creating a quantum leap in performance. You see what they did there.
That's very clever.
Pages will load faster, scrolling will be silky smooth, animations, interactive web apps will respond instantly and be able to handle more immersive and intensive content. And the content most important, you will automatically get the highest priority, focusing processing power where you need it the most. A lot of this new backend stuff is going to be written in Rust, which for people that people love Rust that follow the show.
They do, and it's great. Except as my understanding is, as it stands right now, you need the entire Rust library resources or whatever to do like one thing. And when everything gets there, it'll be really cool. But right now, it's just like this, like a lot of bloat that has to come in with it.
Yeah, they say Project Quantum is about delivering next generation engine that will meet the demands of tomorrow's web by taking full advantage of all processing power in modern devices. Quantum starts from Gecko and replaces major engine components and will benefit the most from parallelization and offloading to the GPU, also known as the GPU. One key part of our strategy is to incorporate groundbreaking components such as Servo, which I think is nice, and it's a community web engine sponsored by Mozilla. They're re-engineering foundational building blocks, they say, like how they apply CSS styles, how they execute DOM operations, and even how the freaking graphics get rendered to your freaking screen. Fundamental changes are coming to Firefox in 2017. And as somebody who's been on Chrome for a while and really wouldn't mind switching back to Firefox, it just doesn't work for me, this kind of news excites the crap out of me. So I really like this. This came from the head of platform engineering at Mozilla, so it sounds like it'd probably be pretty legit. And that's just the highlights.
So a couple things. One is it would have been nice if this evolution would have come earlier on, because it seems like a lot of the things that Firefox is now getting around to implementing, Chrome has kind of already been there. Secondly, the other thing is I just want to point out Mozilla, most of my love for Thunderbird and Firefox is not necessarily, I mean, a lot of it's for the products, and I think it does a reasonable job. It gets the job done for me. But I think the real pull for me is the company behind Firefox. All of their meetings, if you didn't know this, are open. Anyone can attend all of the Firefox meetings. They have a live webinar kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You can't talk, but anyone can listen in. So
and to that point, like Altera's pointing out in the chat room, they actually gave a half-hour talk, an hour and a half talk, I think, about this about a month ago, out in the open.
Right. Yeah. It's just, so that kind of company is the company that I want to be behind. And then
as long as they make a useful browser, I agree.
So that brings me to my third point. My third point is you had said, you want to get back and you'd like to be in Firefox, and you've kind of been over in the Chrome world. And my prediction is, even if they solve some of the performance issues and that becomes better, I think we're still going to run into an issue with you specifically with all of your add-ons and extensions. And I don't know that those are going to be solved just because.
What, man? I got to tell you, recently, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe you're right. I do have some very specific add-ons I use to do the production of the amount of shows that I do to make it easier to do research and note things and all this. Some of it's not available on Firefox. However, let's see, is that one good? That one might be good now, but like 3 out of 5 of my computers I have Chrome on have corrupt profiles right now. In the next segment, I wasted a ton of time because of Chrome. I mean, I do have problems with Chrome these days. So
brand new machine sitting 10 feet away from me over there. And what I'm connecting to you on, I install Chrome. It works fine for the first day or second day or whatever. And at some point, I had a brain fart in the morning and I clicked block on the camera thing. And now if I'm not in a private window, I can't, no matter what I do, I've gone through the whole 9 yards. I'm probably just going to end up having to reinstall Chrome, because the only way to get a video conference to work right now is by using a private window. It's frustrating.
Yeah, that is frustrating. This was a frustrating story.
Don't have that problem in Firefox.
This was a frustrating story that now kind of just got kind of like a no fanfare, just kind of update, I guess. Lenovo has announced a Linux-only BIOS update for the Yoga 900. The model that a couple of weeks ago we talked about that came with the drives and that fancy Intel RAID that made it impossible to run Linux. Lenovo has shipped a Linux BIOS-only update as a Windows 10 executable, ironically. So you have to install it from Windows 10, but then you will be able to put Linux on that Yoga. Still doesn't do it for me. I know it should, but it doesn't do it for me.
Well, here's the thing. As an update, and we talked about this in later that week, but like what people were upset about was a specific. There were 2 models of the computer. They're both identical. It's just they had a model, and then Microsoft said, we want to do these specific things, so could you make us a model for this? And Lenovo made that model for Microsoft, branded it. It was only sold in the Microsoft store. If you bought the identical model at Best Buy, you didn't have this problem. If you bought the exact same computer that Microsoft commissioned from the Microsoft store, that was the one that you had to install Linux on. And
I don't understand how that makes it. But how does that change the story at all? I mean, does it matter if Lenovo sold it from their website or they sold it from the Microsoft store? Does that matter?
To me, it does, because it's a difference between saying Lenovo made a computer and didn't allow people to install Linux on, and Microsoft contracted Lenovo to build a computer for them to sell in their store exclusively, and the changes that Microsoft requested them to make specifically for a Microsoft store, you couldn't put Linux on. I don't know why, but it seems like that's.
I don't know. It feels like an attempt to make Microsoft the bad guy. I still hold Lenovo responsible at the end of the day for shipping a product like this, but more so, I hold Intel responsible for not making that ACHI RAID thingy, whatever it was that they were using, available for Linux. That's some bullshit, and Intel needs to get their game stepped up for Linux support. If I have many middle fingers for them right now after the Skylake debacle, and this at the end of the day was also.
That's a good point.
Now, maybe here's why I still put some responsibility on Lenovo is. I genuinely believe they could have just made a BIOS toggle, and that would have solved so many problems if they just had a simple BIOS toggle.
Clearly they did. I mean, so that's why evidence. You're absolutely correct.
That's why I'm not impressed, but I am actually very happy. And here's what I do hope for, and I think this is I hope this is the silver lining, is I hope that this hassle and them having to build this separate BIOS, I hope this encourages them never to do this again. I would prefer a vendor that just builds the entire product Linux first, but that's obviously in the market reality that's not going to happen. But I hope that maybe after this event, they don't really ever go through this again. They don't ever feel compelled to make something like this again. They at least consider this or consider this functionality in the future. This seems like at least a little bit of a hard-learned lesson, having gone through this now and gotten sort of the raking they got from the community. But if you got one of those yogas, we have a link in the show notes. And if nothing else, at the end of the day, it's super good to see Lenovo at least step up and do this. It would have been nice if it never happened, but it's kind of great from just a landmarker standpoint for Linux community that this wouldn't have happened where a company, they wouldn't have bothered. They just would have let this thing blow over and they wouldn't have bothered. They might not have done it in a future model, but they wouldn't have gone back and done this in the past. And I think because of the presence Linux now has, especially in the DevOps and sysadmin communities, where users are extremely picky and they're decision influencers in their local peer groups, I think it's absolutely forced Lenovo to respond on this kind of stuff. And that, my friends, is the good news for Linux. And that's all the news for this week. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a guy that's totally all in on rolling releases deployed a server for a home media installation that also did things like backup and downloads and BitTorrent sync, and then stopped updating it for 2 years? Well, I had a zombie Arch server that I did set up, and after a power outage, things didn't go well. There was a big mismatch of dependencies, and it's a total mess. So I'll tell you about what happened and why I decided to replace it with OpenMediaVault. But I want to thank Linux Academy for making this segment possible. linuxacademy.com/unplugs where you go. You support the show and you can sign up for a 7-day free trial. This is a great platform to learn more about all the nitty-gritty little tiny things about Linux, but also like big picture stuff, like the big higher level stuff, the abstracted stuff that always feels like it's too heady to understand. Linux Academy helps you put it within a context, within hours you can actually grok, within a downloadable comprehensive study guide that you can read on your own, with instructor mentoring and learning paths and labs and exercises that put you a hand on. It's really unique. Linux isn't a feature of Linux Academy. It is Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there, try it out. They also have new public profiles where you can brag about your accomplishments and also show employers what you've done. They have great cloud credentials where you can go in there. They call it the cloud credentials. It's a system where it evaluates you while you perform tasks on a server. I can't remember what I used to call that, but I like cloud credentials because it shows that you actually have the cred to do those things on a live production system. And I like that immediate feedback because it helps me practice for the exams. In fact, they've also got things that help you just deep dive on that if you're going to go get a cert and want to study down hard. And with iOS and Android apps, you can take it on the go. And with their course scheduler, when you're busy, they make it easy to schedule around that and still meet your learning goals. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there and support the show. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Linux Action Show, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Okay, I take you to the past from just a couple of days ago when I got a frantic call from Angela that a power outage had occurred and our home server was no longer booting. Well, it turns out it booted, but it wouldn't go any further than that. I'm going over to Angela's house because after about a year of neglect, her Arch server has finally died. And I'm bringing over a NUC running OpenMediaVault 3. I'm going to try to do a swap, get Plex, a couple of Usenet services up and running, which is going to mean finding logins and all of that kind of stuff, and see if I can't replace her existing Arch home-built custom server with this OpenMediaVault NUC in a couple of hours. I'm just kind of thinking as I drive over to Angela's house about how I would have done this differently if I could have. If I could have planned this, I would have moved a lot of data off of her server that she doesn't really need. Stuff that Plex is going to have to rescan and index, and there's a lot of little programs on there that could be moved off, like some BitTorrent sync stuff. So I think because I'm at a state right now where her home server isn't booting, which means her DNS isn't working, her Plex isn't working, automated downloads and backups aren't working, so it's gotten past the point where I can do it the way I want to do it, and I just have to get it replaced. I'm going to try to do a one-to-one swap. And I'm trying to run through some of the things that I'm going to need to know. I'm going to need to know the logins for Usenet and the offsite backup. I'm going to need to know what the NFS exports are on the storage array that I'm going to be connecting the OpenMediaVault installation to, because the backend storage is going to be over NFS. And I'm going to need to do that over FS tab, so that way it shows up as an actual volume, I think. I got to figure that out, so that way the OpenMediaVault services see the NFS data, which means I hope I remember what the root password was for this OpenMedia installation. It's been a few weeks. This is all really crammed together. I'm not sure I'm actually gonna pull this off. Hello.
Oh, geez, really?
Okay, so I guess the last time this was updated was 3.19.2, so you can do the math on how old this install is. And when I hit enter here, it goes so fast you can't see it, but there's a lib ncurses error that comes up. Half the system needs lib ncurses 5, the other half needs lib ncurses 6, and I think 6 is installed right now, and so I can't get a shell. So we can't get logged in. It looks like dev SDA wasn't unmounted cleanly. It's doing a check disk right now. SDA1 checks out okay, and I've got a local IP address on the LAN so I can pull it up in the web browser. First step's done. Can't get on the wireless network, and the only wireless network I can get on doesn't seem to be able to talk to the OpenMediaVault server. Don't tell Noah, but it's working fine in Firefox. I can't get it to open up the page in Chrome, but I've got the OpenMediaVault login screen now under Firefox. That's embarrassing. Let's go ahead and install all the updates this time, shall we? I think that that would be good. You gonna use a screwdriver on your knee?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I didn't need it anyways. Okay, updates are done. I think maybe my next step is to create a user account for her and then figure out the NFS stuff. If you know your file server's name, but you don't know the path to your NFS mounts, a quick command, show mount -e, and then the name of the file server will list all of the exports that you can connect to. And I can see mine. There's only one, so that's obviously the one to pick, /volume1/fart. I did a quick FS tab update. I put my NFS mount in there, and now I've already checked it. I was able to mount /mnt/nfs, and I'm connected to the storage. So now it should be a matter of configuring applications to look at this. Right? Isn't that right, Bella?
Yeah.
Doing a quick reboot here, and just to make sure that the thing mounts at boot okay. And once again, I'm getting a check disk type thing here. What's it saying here? A start job is running for dev-disk/by. I don't even know what that is. I gotta look into this after this thing boots up. I don't think it's critical because it's happened every time, and so far it's been fine. Okay, good news.
What?
The NFS mount was there after boot up. We have access to the file shares. It's now just a matter of programming.
It's me. So is the TV fixed?
Not yet, but we're a lot closer.
So could we still have a party?
Well, we're getting a lot closer. Candy reward if Daddy gets this working. I already have OMV extras installed, so now it should just be a matter of enabling the Plex plugin. When I do this, it'll do some basic configuration. It pulls down the packages and sets up the Plex server. We officially have Plex. I've got the welcome setup screen going, just adding libraries, and then the scan will start. If I was going to do the server move the way I could have planned it, I would have backed up our Plex database first. But we got the Plex server set up, and we have all the libraries on there, and it's doing the scan thing. They're all going to show up as new, but at least we'll be able to stream to the televisions again. Oh yeah, that's Plex running on the Roku, streaming from OpenMediaVault. Success! Digging up the Usenet login information. Am I reading that right? 36 terabytes of transfer? Whoa. Okay, that took longer than I thought it would. Even after all these years, I still failed to factor in the kid disruption. Things went pretty good. Plex was the #1 goal. I got that up and going. I got the file shares live. And I got NZB Git set up. Oh, hi there. But Couch Potato and Sab NZB, which I also tried that, and Sickbeard, none of them would start up. They all have air lights, so I'm not really sure. I think I'm gonna have to do some Googling. But if she gets herself an NZB file, she can upload it to NZB Git's web interface and get files temporarily. So it's just the automated stuff that's not working. So I'll have to Google that and see if there's anything specific with OpenMediaVault and setting up those programs. The other kind of like just thing that I just gotta say is, I still feel like it's way too hard to work with NFS shares under OpenMediaVault. None of the web UI can see the fact that I have 12 terabytes of disk mounted over NFS. So I feel like I'm constantly running up against that with OpenMediaVault. However, all in all, see, I got there 2.5 hours, three hours ago. Yeah, about almost 3 hours now. And we got the basic functionality up and running. And now it's on a system that she can update, she can maintain, and she can use the admin interface. So I think just other than a few little things like Couch Potato and Sickbeard, I'm going to say a success for OpenMediaVault 3. I'm getting real-time follow-up from the chat room right now. They tell me that there is an update coming with an update for the Arch, or an update to OpenMediaVault. There's an update coming to OpenMediaVault 3 for the NFS mounts that I was trying to get working. I guess there's going to be a GUI for it. So that's good.
Nice.
Yeah, that'll be really nice. Maybe when that just comes, I'll just be able to go and solve that problem.
It's almost good that it didn't, because it underscores the point, and that is that when you want to, you can open the hood of your car and change the oil. Yeah. And that's a distinct advantage that OpenMediaVault has over its competitors. That was the thing that made me go with OpenMediaVault, is I had that confidence of, well, I'll just drop down to the Debian terminal and do whatever I can't figure out in the GUI. But, at the end of the day, I just wanted something maintainable and manageable for her that is going to work well. And I think it's in a workable state right now, with just a few extra things needed. But the core functionality has been resolved. So that was really cool. And it was nice to be able to theorize it and drop it in there and have it mostly work with just a few hiccups. But I'm sure a lot of you out there have been in that position too, where it's like, I had this grand plan, but then I just had to replace the damn thing and I had to scramble. Yeah. So it got it done. And I'm pretty happy with OpenMediaVault. Welcome to my weekly life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so. I tried it, here in testing in the studio for about a month. And then to put it in production, I think I don't know. I've only tried it with a couple of tasks, but performance was great. Updates are super easy. The UI is nice. I just have nothing but mostly positive things to say. So, and it sounds like my NFS issues may be resolved quickly. Oh, and I did figure out what that mount was that kept generating errors at boot. Mm-hmm. I forgot to say in the video, but it was the previous test volume that I had attached that wasn't properly removed before I took the NUC out of the studio, and so I had to go delete that as a volume and all that stuff, because the system was looking for a mount point that no longer existed or something.
Sure.
So I can't believe I did that, but I figured I was in a rush. So
yeah.
But you know what? So I will say this, and I was just talking to the Beard before the show, and I think the benchmark for me from now on when it comes to Arch on a server is, if it's a box I can update about every 2 weeks, I'm pretty comfortable using that in a production environment, be it server or otherwise. A perfect prime example is the machine I'm sitting in right here in front of, Arch rolling, and the machine that's broadcasting this and making this all possible is our OBS system, which just got updated to the latest and greatest Arch updates as of Friday or something. A couple of issues maybe we'll get the Beard to talk about on user error in a future episode, but for the most part, the systems I maintain and spend a lot of time on have been great running Arch. The systems that I neglect, and in full disclosure, I expected to be updating that thing almost on a daily basis. I didn't expect to move out and all that, so it sort of was inevitable, and it's lesson learned. And now I'm going to go with something that should be supported for years. It's kind of a good lesson.
It's kind of funny though that you're like, oh, we updated this Arch box, and then all of a sudden I get here on Sunday, nothing works. Like, I just can't figure out what went wrong. Something went wrong. Something changed in here.
Out of everything in this studio, that's the one box that didn't have any issues.
The least problem.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm not saying Arch is no good. I'm just saying there are definitely situations that I'm not going to go rolling in all the time anymore. And by the way, see Ubuntu 16.10 review and 16.04 reviews.
Yeah, no kidding. Let me ask you a question. On your as a play on your idea of how to deploy Arch. Michael Tennell, one of our producers, he has a very unique way of rolling out Arch to his family and friends. And what he does is he shuts all of the repos off, points them to a repo that he hosts on DigitalOcean, and then he manually tests and decides what updates he wants to that are going to work for him, and then pushes those out to his own little repo, and then all of his family and friends that are pointed to that repo just get their updates.
I've thought about that. So he's basically running his own Manjaro. He's rolling his own Manjaro in a sense.
Yeah, exactly, kind of.
I've thought about doing that. And I know that anybody that uses systems in large-scale production like that probably does. Like I think Wes does some local repo stuff. I'd have to ask him on Unplugged. But and I know that DigitalOcean, when you update a lot of their instances, they'll update from a server that's on the local LAN. Of course, apt makes this crazy easy to do with apt proxy as well. So I know a lot of people do this. I don't know if I have the time and energy to actually maintain my own repo of packages. I should pick his brain and ask him how he publishes and approves apps to the repo. If there's a way I could have a master computer and the remote repo would match my master computer, and
I think that's kind of what it is.
Oh, okay.
Is when he gets everything works, he goes, okay, this is approved, and then that one is cloned now.
If there's a way I could roll that into my daily workflow, I'm going to talk. Maybe I could pick his brain about it on Linux Unplugged, because I'd really like to know more. But yeah, lesson learned here, and none for the worse. I think overall it's going to be better for her for a long-term solution. So I'm pretty happy with it. That's the Linux Action Show's look at slaying an arch zombie with an OpenMediaVault axe. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. But before we go, we want to cover some emails, some feedback, actually, even a tweet. It's a historic moment on the Linux Action Show. Not really. But first, I want to thank System76 over at System76.com, who make killer systems that support more than 16 gigs of RAM, have tons of great processors in them, and GTX 10 series graphics cards. They also have desktops and servers. These laptops.
Also, Chris, from the System76 Telegram channel, their engineers have confirmed they are not removing the escape key.
Oh, good. The escape key will remain on System76 computers. That's wonderful. You know, Mike's a man after your own heart. Michael Dominic from Coda Radio, he got the Lemur 14. The Lemur. He got the Lemur 14 right there, which I know is kind of in your sweet spot. And he's been tweeting out some pictures. He got it with the matte screen so he can use it outside. I tell you what, though, I keep hearing from people that are getting the Oryx Pro. That is such a killer machine. And now with the GTX 10 series cards, dude.
Adrum is talking about it like right now in the chat room. Yeah. As you're talking about it, Adrum is having a conversation about the Oryx Pro in the chat room. Everyone wants the Oryx Pro.
A lot of people are. In fact, System76 experienced unprecedented traffic after the Apple event. Because people are like, that's it, man. They just, people are creating applications that run on Linux servers up in the cloud, and they're writing web apps. They don't need a $2,800 MacBook Pro that doesn't have an escape key when you can go get a custom-built System76 designed to run Linux that works great, and by the way, gets updated more than every 17 years or whatever it is these days for Apple. System76.com.
16 gigs of RAM. I love it.
Go there and tell them Noah switched you to Linux, please, and there might just be a little surprise for you. Tell them Noah switched you to Linux when you check out. All right, so let's cover emails. The first one comes in from Donut, and he has a question about JB SuperKey. He said, I've heard you talk about the SuperKey stickers in a recent show. Hold on, I'm grabbing them. I'd like to get some. Where do I get them? And I got some here, and those are black and white, and then I got colored ones right here, which probably don't look that good on camera. But
Chris, I maybe it's typo maybe or something. He didn't ask where you could get them. He wants to know where he could get them.
Oh, I see. Well, you'll hear more. We'll probably do an announcement soon. We're just getting all that sorted out. Yeah, I'm actually really excited about it, and I think you'll probably like what we come up with about how you're going to get them. So there you go. There's that. All right.
The short answer is, for the time being, no stickers for you.
Unless you make it here to the JB studio.
Oh, that's good. That's good incentive. Andrew L writes in and he has some feedback about your favorite thing, the CRM review.
Good.
Sir Mo, this was a great segment. I would like to see more business solution type segments on Last, or maybe even a more business centric show for Noah. As a person that works primarily in a Windows environment, I would like to see an open source solutions that are business ready so that I can pitch them at work. The only way we will go from a Microsoft shop to a Linux shop is by finding open source applications that can meet all of the needs of business. We are looking to replace our current CRM next year, and we will be setting up a Zermo server for people to try.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I know that is definitely, I mean, I did a firewall episode like 9 years ago that Rikai thinks is the worst episode of Linux Action Show we've ever done. And
Oh, really?
I still occasionally get emails from people who said it was one of their most favorite shows. So it's, it really depends. It really kind of depends on what people are in the zone for. I saw some YouTube comments where somebody's like, holy crap, I was just researching CRMs. This is so timely. It's crazy. Every now and then it does happen. I don't think from an aggregate standpoint it makes a huge impact, but I actually like the idea. Even at the end of the day, if nothing else, here's how I looked at it. Even if I never am going to deploy a CRM, which you almost kind of made me want to, but even if I'm never going to, I like to know how Linux can solve problems in the real world for people in ways that add value. And so that sort of allows me to live through someone else's Linux experience for a little while, and I found that to be interesting about it.
For sure.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do some more. If anybody has some suggestions, let us know. I mean, Noah is so heads down in this kind of stuff. He probably doesn't even think of all the different ways that he could actually do segments out of this.
No, I don't. How long did it take us to do an episode on all the DMX lighting and stuff? And I mean that stuff I use that every other week. And I mean I was on the show for a good year before we even talked about it.
Yeah,
I'm surrounded by all these Linux computers, and we have to do a show topic tomorrow. What could it be?
Hey man, it was just last week we finally got around to plugging Flux and Redshift.
Yeah.
So we got years of content still in us. I think that's what that tells us.
Once we remember all the stuff we're using.
Not any more content for this week. That does bring us to the end of this week's show. You can find him. He's at Kernel Linux, and is it at Altispeed if they want to follow the business there, Noah?
At Altispeed if you want to see cool pictures of all the places that we destroy and then rebuild.
And if you're curious about Mike's switch to Linux and his new laptop, I'm sure we'll hear more about it in this week's Coda Radio. Also, you can check out last week's Coda Radio, where we talk a little about that. If you want other Linux shows, we have Linux Unplugged on Tuesdays and User Air whenever the hell I manage to get it edited and published. But we have this RSS feed where you get it every single week. Those shows also cover more Linux. So if you're getting to the end of this and you want more Linux stuff, we have some great shows for you. And if you're a little BSD curious, we do have the BSD Now show, and I will be at Meet BSD. So we have some BSD stuff coming up too that you can look into. And last but not least, if you want to get content into this show, linuxactuallyshow.reddit.com. Join us live at jblive.tv on Sundays. It's noon Pacific, but you can just get that converted to your local time at our calendar page, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And Noah, how should people get emails into the show?
They can go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click on the contact link, choose the Linux Action Show from the drop-down menu, and Magic Robots deliver your message to us that we will read here on air. Or not, your choice.
Fueled by haters. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here next week.
This is when I went to work with Alex. That was a miserable day.
What do you mean?
I always had this impression that like pilots, like they got in their airplane, they sat down, and then they flew.
Sure,
and,
sure.
got done, get back off, let the passenger get off, fly back. Yeah, no, it's not like that. We get into the airplane and we fly, and then we land, and as soon as we land, get off, let's go. We got 10 minutes, let's go. We have to run like to the other end of the concourse. I'm like, Jesus, what? All right, get in. We gotta go. Okay, fine. We get.
It feels like that's a system that is
terrible.
Is abusive.
Terrible. Yeah, and then finally, like halfway through the day, I'm like, and he's like, all right, time for lunch. I'm like, oh, good, finally we can take a break for lunch. So we start running through the airport, and we get to the place, and he's like, yeah, I'll take a hamburger and fries to go. And I'm like, to go? Why don't we sit down and eat? He's like, we don't have time. We have 15 minutes instead of 10. There's 5 minutes to get lunch. Let's go. And I'm like, Jesus, where are you going to eat? And he's like, in the cockpit. Let's go. I'm like, God damn, we can't even take time for lunch. I know, it was really bad. I have pictures of us running up and down the concrete. It was bad.
So I'm sitting there at a place like this, we're chewing people up the ladder, and like 2 or 3 people up the chain of command, so that way we could not have to break down and reset up and break down our equipment between each night of a live event, because that just takes. Not only does it take an hour or 2 to do that, but it also every time you do that introduces a chance for buzz or cameras not to work, and so
exactly.
And the reason was stupid, and I knew that if we could just talk to the right person at a high enough level in the company, they'd be totally okay with it. But that was awkward because everybody's sitting at the table and I'm sitting there chewing this person out.
I thought it was great. I was super impressed. God, son of a gun. So
are you having a hard timing?
God, I tell you what. Here's what we should do. We should totally do this. We should have a Google Glass User Air episode. This is drunk Santa Claus was driving down the street and this guy got stuck in the snow, and straight up drunk Santa Claus showed up and got out of his truck and like had a rope, and he like stumbles up to the car, and I'm like,
this is amazing.
I know, it was great. It was so great. And
you're telling me that Santa Claus right there is drunk right now?
He was plastered, totally plastered.
That's so stereotypical.
It was so great. I absolutely loved it.
Hey, guess what? Turns out,
What?
when the rig isn't level right, I can't cook bacon as well because all the grease like
Because the
goes-
grease slides, yes.
Yeah, man.
I
Sucks.
had that problem because the only thing I don't have a microwave in my RV, right? So I have to do everything in a pan.
You should get a toaster oven if you can fit it. Just a small one.
I know. I took a picture of yours because I was told that was like the super good toaster oven one to have from a Toaster Master toaster.
From Toastmaster.